Why, hello there. It's me, Jeremy, your favorite bald dude telling you about Standard and Strange, a store and a brand with simple rules. Sell clothes they themselves would wear, manufacture it ethically, and build it to last. From boots made in Oregon to loop wheel garments made in Japan, find all the best clothes for your wardrobe at Standard and Strange. StandardandStrange.com. Hey folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. How you doing? We all doing good? We cozy, wherever we are? We nice and warm? Or on the beach somewhere? Sometimes I always wonder, like, where is everyone while they're listening? Are you driving? Are you being nice? Am I on CarPlay? One of those cool things? Whatever. Anyway, I'm back from New York. It was one of those whirlwind trips. I don't know. Traveling is amazing. It's so incredible, but it's hard. And I always feel like an idiot when I travel. Like I brought 7 phone chargers. 7. I only used 1 the whole time. Glad I had 6 in case, something went wrong. What am I doing? I'm an idiot. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Big pod this week. Huge pod. Guillermo Andrade, founder and head of design at 424. This guy, I mean, he's unbelievable. He's a phoenix from the ashes. He's been there. I mean, huge designer, and I'm very, very glad to have him on. We kind of went all over the map on this one, but we get into it. I mean, he chats and he goes into it, and it's great because like sometimes I'll have guests on, and I really have to pull things out. I mean, I'll be trying to ask other questions, and I got to ask like 7 to 10 questions for them to answer the first question that I ask. And Guillermo was like, okay, like he was just ready. You'll hear it. It's a great pod. I mean, and 424 is a massive brand. I mean, they're a brand that grew from a simple design and a small store in LA to being on pretty much everyone's back, and even the official formalwear for Arsenal Football Club. Like that's a big deal. Anyway, Guillermo and I chat about the creation of 424, his early life immigrating to the U.S. from Guatemala, the importance of giving your time, his love of suiting, why he admires Rick Owens, and what's next for 424. Let's go. So you just got back from Italy and Paris.
Mm-hmm.
You're on what season of 424 now?
About 16 wannabe collections.
Wait, wannabe? What do you mean?
I only feel like now, like I finally figured it out.
Oh, yeah?
So,
okay.
They're all like exercises, right?
Yeah, because I think for me, I first understood you when you were like the armband,
mm-hmm.
right? That was early 424, right?
That was in essence, that was when the world found out about it.
Okay.
There was one collection previous to that. And it was actually probably to date my most successful collection, if I'm honest. The one
really?
Before the armband, yeah. At the time, well, I mean, the success is a relative thing, right? To me.
Sure.
It was 8 pieces.
Okay.
So it was very tight.
Yeah.
Merchandising was on point. Everything was great. Funny enough, now I'm coming back around to having smaller collections.
Oh, shit.
But at the time I couldn't travel because I didn't have my green card yet. So if I left the country, I wouldn't be allowed to come back in.
Okay.
And I use a collection as a sort of mood board for the next decade of my life. So It was all of the things I was obsessed with, all these things I just found out about, like skirts for men and, poplins and Supima cottons and all these like beautiful fabrics that I just never knew were for men to wear. And I tried to do my own version of it. And then the graphics for it was a very like RAF-esque, sort of collage thing.
Oh, yeah.
But what I did is I took a screenshot of all of the, on Google Earth, of all of the exact locations I wanted to visit one day. So they're all, what are they called? When the image with all the numbers on top of it.
You mean like the XY coordinates?
Yes, they're coordinates. So it's all the coordinates of the places I imagined I would have to go one day to see in person or, visit for whatever purpose, So it was like, the Arsenal Stadium, Tokyo. I figured I'd want to move it to Tokyo. So I was like, well, I found the embassy, and I was like, well, you're probably going to need to get a visa to stay permanently. So I put that, and you can go back and track down all the coordinates of the places I most wanted to see in the world. And that was very special because that collection took me to Copenhagen, and that's where I first launched it. And I had no idea what was going on, but a friend of mine offered me half of a booth at a trade show called SIF, and I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, you mean a trade show just not in Vegas? I'm so down. So that's the first place I went when I was allowed to travel for work, was to Denmark. And Copenhagen, that's a special place in my heart. So now that was the end of 2015, bro. And it was, I went just to show stuff. I didn't really go to sell it. I was like, this is like just cool to share, so I set up my little booth, and next thing you know, there's a very, sort of strong character just comes up to the booth, and he's like, you're going to sell this to me. And I was like, well, I'm not really selling stuff.
Whoa, Jedi.
Yeah, I was like, all right, cool. I'm not really like selling it. Honest, to be fair, I don't even know how.
Yeah.
And, his name is Claudio Antonioli. So that was the guy. He's like putting pressure on me. And he's like, then the next day he came back with his team, and, they wrote an order, and I couldn't really say no, because I was like, well, this is pretty cool. It's like, this guy's got one of the best. I mean, at the time I knew what the store was, I freaked out. I was like, dude, it's the guy from Milan, from Antonioli. It's the guy.
Right.
So I went back to the hotel room. I Googled what is wholesale, and and then that's where it kind of started.
Dang.
All around that time. So it's I had 8 accounts by the time I left SIF, and my very first ever account was Storm Copenhagen. That's why I had the confidence to go to Denmark in general. It's like, there's a store there that sells my stuff. So worst case scenario, I take the samples, I sell them, and I fly back home.
Right.
Because I just like the shit was raw.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when people don't necessarily have too strong of a plan, they're able to react to things that come their way easier than some folks where it's like, no, I have a plan. It has to go this way. I have to think this way. It has to work,
There are people who really stick to their guns, so they set a plan, and come hella high water, that's the plan.
Right.
God bless them. I am not one of those people.
Well, we got to figure out where some of that stuff came from, because where are you from originally?
Guatemala.
And so you came.
I was 10 years old when I came to the States. So every movie you've ever watched on Netflix, with all the B and C list celebrities crossing the border, shit's all true. I came to the States exactly like that. I feel the story hasn't really been properly documented and shared with
What story?
The story of a 10-year-old kid and his family running across the fucking desert, wading in mud, getting chased by helicopters, going under the wall. There are so many people in this country with the same story, or either our parents, their parents, or our cousins and older brothers all have, a connection to this exact story. And there's a lot of people in this country who share, in the same experience, which is really, it's just really crazy. If you think it's probably even half the population of America.
Yeah, I mean,
there are 40 million people, who are Hispanic who live here that are documented and counted for, and then you have, their brothers, their moms, their dads, their uncles, and in some cases, a lot of family who was already born here to begin with. So it's our story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, obviously, I have not lived it. I was born here, but I mean, being aware of how this country was more or less founded by immigrants, for people looking for a better life for themselves. I mean, it's what makes America America.
It's gnarly,
Yeah. So you came here as a kid, and so would you say you're more or less raised in around like California?
I like to say I had a second childhood. My very first, I came at 9, turning 10. By the time I was out of middle school, I had learned an entirely new code, a new system, a new society, new community, new everything. And in Guatemala, there was hardly any running water. There was no electricity where I was born, where I'm from, where I was raised. this is just kind of mountain and just plants and kind of Amazon-ish, you know, like it sounds insane. It sounds like those, like, you know, the commercial, like, donate 10 cents a day for these kids to like live for a year. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yes, I do.
It's kind of like that. It's pretty insane. When I watch those commercials, I'm like, you know what? I don't think those kids ever got the 10 cents.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that.
No, I say it with humor, because now I'm fucking American, and I'm like, yo, we got finessed for those 10 cents, you know? But nonetheless, you know, I came to the States and I saw color TV, like, huge for the first time. I lost my shit. You know, I sat in front of it and I watched Tom and Jerry for at least a month. It was just insane. It was crazy cool.
Tom and Jerry, that's extremely specific. Yeah.
I remember it specifically because it was a vivid realization that I was in a new place.
Right.
And even though we lived in the hood, it didn't really matter, because to me, it already felt like I was in Atlantis or something. You know, like, I saw cars. I saw there was 7-Elevens. There was like all kinds of things you just never imagined would be, you know, such symbols of progression or a modernity. I just knew I was in a new world, because it was so drastically different from where I was coming from. So, you know, I finished elementary school, went to middle school, and by the time I was out, I really understood I was a part of a new place, a new community, new people, new way of life. And to be fair, you know, at least in Guatemala, I didn't know I was poor.
Yeah, sure.
Here, people remind you daily.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And I grew up in a kind of extreme contrast. So, you know, having realizations as a very, very young kid that, oh shit, I felt so happy, but these people have so much more than we do. And they abruptly make it apparent, you know?
This is in LA?
No, up in the Bay, NorCal. Yeah, okay. Still don't really claim LA like that. You know, like, I'm still from the Bay.
Yeah.
And it started fast for me. You know, I was 12 years old. I got on a traveling soccer team, and I mean, obviously I couldn't afford it. Soccer here is for people with expendable income.
Right.
And I spent most of my days at soccer practice and getting, you know, driven home from the nice part of town to the not so nice part of town, and getting dropped off, you know, at the end of the day after practice is always kind of a funny thing. And God bless these people. I don't say this to be mean to them, but when I think about it, I'm like, man, fuck, you know, like, I would be in this green Chrysler Caravan, pretty car, you know, shiny green car, had the sliding door and shit. We were all like, wow, the car's sick. At that tan interior, and, you know, they would just drop me off 2 blocks away, you know, on the main road. They wouldn't actually go into the neighborhood. I'm like, okay, we'll see you later. It was like, you know, and the thing was like, oh, the freeway's right there. We just get, you know, so I would just be like, I never thought anything of it. And then as an adult, I'm like, yo, if they were worried about getting robbed, like, I was already in the car.
Right.
Like, we were already inside their car. You know, why not just drop me off at home?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you know, it's just like, it was constant reminders all of the time, you know, that I was just living a pretty drastic contrast, you know, because my friends' parents were doctors and lawyers and, you know, all of that stuff. And my dad's a contractor, and we painted houses, but I was really sick at soccer, you know, so like, it was a preview of what was to come, because my life has gone very much in that trajectory since as far as I can remember, you know, like a I don't know, like a king and a slave or something, you know, like in one ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the contrast to that stuff, because a lot of people being in the proximity of wealth definitely is a very interesting experience. I mean, obviously, but because, you know, for some people, you grow up in a certain area and your community is more or less tied to the same socioeconomic
nature
status.
versus nurture, bro.
You know, yeah, exactly.
I learned that fucking term. Let me tell you, when I learned that, I was like, oh, word. You think like just because of where I live, you can tell me who I'm going to be? Okay,
right?
Cool. You know, I took that shit to heart.
Yeah, and that's a very real thing, especially when, you know, I mean, I'm from the Midwest, and where I grew up, you know, it wasn't. I want to be very clear. You know, we were never concerned about food, but, you know, my parents had other friends who were, you know, at a different socioeconomic status than we were, and you start to like, for me, it was just like the video games, right? We didn't have video games; they had video games. They had, you know, I couldn't do sports because, well, you know, we're going to go to church, or we don't really have time. You know, my parents did a very good job of insulating me to things if they would have been more transparent, I probably would have been more conscious of it. Sure. Where like I was never worried about my parents' money situation, right? Like it existed, we ate, we did, we did stuff, but I wasn't aware of like, oh, but that family has to do this. Why can't we live this sort of life? But when you're where you are, it sounds like that's a daily.
Well, the crazy thing was, I mean, also I think it has a lot to do with the day-to-day lifestyle. We lived in kind of proximity to a big city, like really, 2-3 job working people. And there's no time to process like, oh, let's not do it in front of the kids.
Yeah, that's also
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's
very true.
Like that shit was like, hey, like it was 9:30 and like whatever was on the dollar menu, like just barely made it home warm. And you're like, fuck. And like you're just stoked you got food. Like I never worried about food either, but the quality of food sure as fuck was different.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And you know, I didn't worry, like we were homeless and shit, but I was loved. I never felt anything like that, like we had a kind of dramatic childhood and it was like active, like it was always some shit going on, but I always felt loved, always, and I didn't have any rules. My parents didn't fucking ground me. I could do whatever I wanted essentially. And I think because I'm an older brother of 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I really took that on, I said, no matter what, these 3 are not going to have the opportunity to blame me for their fuck ups.
Did you have to be like the junior parent?
I was a senior parent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't know it, I just thought I was being a good big bro.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were.
I mean, that's yet to be, that's yet to be decided. But
are you still close with your family?
We're all super close. Yeah. We're all super close. Even work together, my younger brother helps me with, kind of the styling, the just in general, like mood of the collections overall. We just always did it together. Again, we didn't know we were doing it. It was just like, yo, that's fresh. Or like, like that, they were my barometer for things to actually be made or not. It's like if we all didn't fuck with it, it never got made. Yeah. Because we all grew up like that, like one little room, 2 bunk beds. So that's 4 minds acting as one. And we're all just really in sync. And now my other brother, he does the films and the photography. So it's a one-stop shop.
Damn, that's true. And that's got to be, there's far more trust in that instincts because I mean, it's family.
Dude, yeah, awesome. I mean, look, I don't make a lot of money, but when I do, I like to share it with my, my brothers starting. Yeah. And beyond that, I always look for people, who had something to say, who were doing something cool and worthwhile that I could lend my platform to. And to this day, that's probably the thing I'm best at, It's just like identifying talent, like spotting it like a fucking eagle or something. And
do you feel like that's a redemptive quality that you have based on the stuff you've experienced?
I used to think so. Growing up a bit, bro. And you know what? I also think it's a sort of like kind of, some people hedge their bets on people losing. I hedge my bet on people winning.
Okay.
And I just, I'll give up like a quick pop-up fee or, like an extra 20% on the commission or this or that to kind of keep the whole thing going. And it served me well. I've been a part of other people's successes and people know about that. That's invaluable. I mean, you can't buy that shit. You just can't. There's no amount of money you can put on the table that says, I helped this other person achieve their dreams or, take a step in the direction. And now you see them all over the world. Those things, I always thought I was doing it to be a good person. I think I just had an inherent feeling of like really being a part of the community, not using it as a keyword, for a corporate deck. I mean, actually taking a fucking part of it, really being a part of the community and not for profit, but just because I wanted all of us to move together.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're well aware of how some folks can kind of lean on their lack of prosperity and more or less.
Are you kidding me? Rich people pretending to be broke. It's the craziest shit I ever heard of in my life, ever. Like hardship that's not like fabricated hardships. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard of, ever. You know, like it just
Yeah.
tripped me out. And it's like, yo, respect. Okay, cool. Like I feel you want to connect. You know, there are other ways. You know, you can be an ally instead of pretending to be one of us. It's super fucking weird.
Yeah, the whole sympathy breeds loyalty thing is really weird.
I knew I was going to get into this just because like I fucking knew it. But the fact that being nice is trendy today is crazy. It is like I can't wrap my mind around it. You know, that people who are actually despicable are putting on a front like they care about, you know, kids in Africa, or, you know, like they want to donate money to a cause they have absolutely no interest in, but they do it just for show. And funny enough, now it's more transparent than ever. I mean, you can spot them so fast, the people who are just doing it to tick the box or whatever, you know. And I just never imagined that just being a good person was going to be like the trend, you know.
It's true. I mean, I used to I worked in the like not-for-profit sector for a bit, and one of the things we would do to kind of vet companies that we would help consult with was look up their 990s. And your 990 is the tax form that you have to file to be a 501c3 company. So you can look them up. It's public.
So the proof is there, you know?
Yeah, so and basically what you can find out is more or less how they spend their, you know, untaxed money. So you know, a big not joke, but a thing that a lot of people like throw shade at is the fact that like the Red Cross and other places like that, where you look at all the money they bring in and how much money goes out. And there's even companies that have made like charity grades or not-for-profit grades, in which they'll be like, okay, so for X amount of cents, or if you give $1 to them, only
the 10 cent thing.
I'm making this up.
The 10 cent thing.
Yeah. So like only 10 cents goes out, or only 30, you know, how much they put on overhead, or how much is their board paid. You know, you find out things like that. And here's the thing. It's not like, oh, let's do this to call everyone out. But it's like, I think when people do want to be charitable and they do want to be kind and nice, and it's not just trendy, it is out of the goodness of their heart, or it is out of a way to give back, a way to remember where they came from, whatever that is, right? The abundance mentality.
Go to a hospital, go to a local teen center or a local community center, and sit your ass down for 30 minutes and give people your time.
Oh, there you go.
That's a good place to start. I still remember the people who came to the teen center just to like even just watch over us, you know, just because they were there. Like that first layer, you know, like the money. This is where I get a little bit. I think about it, you know, because I like to donate what I can when I can.
Sure.
And sorry to cut you off, but this shit's always
no, you're
really
fine,
hit me, is that people will do everything except the one thing that really, really helps, which is just give people their fucking time, you know? When you are from a certain walk of life, or, you know, you're a big, giant fucking CEO and you want to donate, you know, $10 million. Cool. You know what's even crazier? When that guy comes to your neighborhood and just sits down with you and shows you how you can connect in real life. And that moment will not for everyone, but for the kid like me back then, it would have done so much for me, you know, just to have access to these people, just conversationally, just to hear how they talk, how they see the world, the things that they want to achieve, what they have achieved, how they did it, you know, just a conversation, being in the room with someone, it is a game changer, you know, and you can keep your fucking money, bro. Straight up, you know, because I was ready to work for money, you know, I was ready to try and contribute, you know, I want to contribute to my environment. I don't want to take. And that's how I would like to contribute, you know, is it just create things that are living and breathing.
Like an incubator style thing.
I mean, you know, like those are long-term goals for sure, but they're definitely, you know, in the works. Always a part of that. You know, like, you know, people think like, look at Steve Jobs and Apple, you know, like it was those fucking shows he put on that really changed the game. It was him in front of all that crowd, you know, creating this energy, generating this momentum for those products. That really was a game changer. You felt like you were there with him as he was discovering this new thing.
Yeah.
You know, I worked at Apple, bro. When you walked in and, you know, you like.
You were at the retail store?
That was the first line. I was the first line of defense, you know. It was like right there when you walked in. You know, it's like, hey, yo, you got an appointment? You know, with my giant Easy Pay. And it's like, how can I help you today? You know,
Wait, what years did you work at Apple?
I worked at Apple 2008, 9, I think. 8, 9, maybe into 10. And I think I could say it now. I don't know, but there might be consequences. But they basically, they figured out that, like, my green card wasn't real. So I had to quit.
Oh shoot. Okay.
I really knew that Apple was going to be like Apple, and I just wanted to experience it. I wanted to work there. You know, I knew computers were going to change everything, and I wanted to be around this energy. I just thought, fuck, man, like, look how MySpace just took over the entire universe. You know, like everybody I knew would do anything just to be on a computer, to be on MySpace. And here was this place with a very simplified way of interacting with this technology, and it was super clean. It had all the things I liked. You know, I was like, that place is fucking sick. I want to be a part of that. And a couple of my buddies were geniuses. So I got them to put in a good word for me. And I talked to, I still remember my interview with the lady, and I was like, hey, look, I don't know anything about computers. I know how to use MySpace and AOL. And I'm sick at those. But I told her, no one will sell more computers than me. Nobody. You give me this job, I'll sell more computers than anybody who works here, period. That's how much I loved the technology. And it wasn't about sales. It's just like, that shit changed my life. Like, seeing it, I was like, no way. Like, this is so cool. This is before the iPhone, right before the iPhone launched. So I don't know if that dates back to 08.
iPhone was 07.
So there you go. That's when I was there right when the shit happened, right?
So did you get your free iPhone?
Hell no. They were not getting.
You didn't get one?
No, bro. I was down the totem pole. I got nothing.
Oh, that's effed up. So I was at Apple 05 to 0.
I was part-time.
Oh, that's why.
I know. I was salty, but it's all good.
That's so fucked. Yeah.
But it game changer. To this day, I'm still incredibly grateful for that opportunity. I saw Supreme lines before Supreme, dog. You never saw hype until you saw like the Leopard drop. You remember Leopard?
I do remember Leopard.
They
had Leopard and then Snow Leopard and all that.
Purple CD cover that came out. It was like if Wu-Tang dropped a new album or something. Bro, I saw so many like middle-aged Patagonia wearers just bum rushing the fucking stands, taking like 5 at a time, dude. We had to line up on the sides and clap them as they cheered in, and they were like, it was like the NFL Super Bowl, They were like, it was so funny.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. I mean, I was there. Yeah, I think 05 to 08.
What'd you do? You were a genius for sure.
No, well, I was a creative.
Oh, you were.
So I
I used to sell your fucking classes. I used to be nice at selling those. All the setup.
Yeah, so I did. So it was before the creative thing existed, and I worked basically as a holiday employee because I came on during holiday at 05 in New York at the Soho.
Oh, you were at the dope shop. We used to be so jealous of all the shops because we were at the little baby shop.
Which shop were you at?
Up in just north of San Francisco. Oh. So like, it was one of the earlier shops.
Yeah.
It was 1,000 square feet of just pure profit.
Yeah, I mean, all those things were. It was nuts. Insane. It was where we were at was cool because you'd have celebrities walk in, like, David Bowie coming in to get his laptop fixed or whatever, which was
so
nuts because it's like, what the hell is Bowie doing? Like, doesn't he have an assistant? And some of these people, that was their thing, sure. But like, you'd have people like that come in, and it was fun. Like, I would say that some of my closest friends are people that I met working there. But it was also, the creative thing didn't really exist yet. I had to like prove myself. I had to explain to them how I knew, because I came from the music industry and recording. And
I was going to say, what was your suite?
Going to teach Logic,
doing GarageBand and Logic.
I did Logic,
you were
which
more
is like
advanced,
nothing what it is
because
now.
back then it's like GarageBand teachers were like teaching old ladies how to use the guitar and like sync it up to their microphones and all that.
Well, and that was the thing, right? That was most of the stuff. Is you'd have people come in, and the funny thing is, like, I would occasionally, you'd have a big musician come in who needed their work done, I shouldn't say work done, who needed help doing like a recording or some sort of, or there was an issue with a plugin, something really dumb. And it was just me and one other person who did Logic for all of Soho.
Jesus.
And this was the only Apple store in New York at the time.
So you met every most famous person living in New York at that time, for sure.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that's how I got out, because I met Paul Banks from Interpol. He'd come in, and you'd see the names that were in advance. And I was like, yo, that's Paul Banks. I was like, that's fucking Interpol. I'm like, yo, I see him in my neighborhood, because I was living in the Lower East Side. And in my head, I was making music. I was like, I'm going to give him my demo. Or I would find them on MySpace, and I'd be like, yo, let me, I was hustling. And awesome. he was the reason that I left Apple, because he was like, yo, you should go work at Matador, I'll help you out. Yeah, and he put in, and this is when they were on Capitol, and so he was still close with like Nils Bernstein, who was the PR and stuff there. Yeah, and so, I mean, that, it's funny you mention Apple, because it changed my life. But at the same time, and this is what I want to call out, like, you had the tools to do it, right? You were in an environment, you were in all these things, but it's still on you to make shit happen. Like, this isn't like you have it and now you have a free pass or now you have a handout. You still have to do the work. Do you even loop wheel, bro? Do you know what loop wheel garments are? I actually didn't, honestly. I was just like, oh, it's a flex. It's a special kind of cotton. Yeah, kind of. But the folks at Standard and Strange dropped a ton of knowledge bombs and their own incredible loop wheel tee. Made in Japan, of course. But back to loop wheel. It's an antique circular knitting machine that relies on gravity and uses spring bearded needles. Do you get it? Bearded needles? What the heck? Look, all you need to know is it's dope. It's better, and if you want to learn more, visit standardandstrange.com/loop wheel and check out their new loop wheel tees. Trust me, your boy is partial to yellow because, duh, but the tees are fire no matter what color you pick. The fit is spot on, and it's a classic tee that looks like it's from every era ever and fits like a dream. And it's from the folks from Standard and Strange, the shop that helps you own fewer, better things. Run by industry vets who are focused on incredible product from incredible vendors. And look, if that's not your vibe, check out some of their huge offerings of other Japanese denim or boots. But listen, the shirts, fam, the shirts, the loop wheel. So visit standardandstrange.com/loop wheel to learn more. Standard and Strange. Own fewer, better things at standardandstrange.com.
Bro, I didn't do something like miraculous with 424. There are loads of people who take a shot and achieve their thing, like, and I fuck with that. But the amount of people who came out of nowhere and like, yo, I could have done that. It's like, yeah, but you didn't, dog. Like, oh, I would have done this. Like, but yeah, but you didn't, fam. You still there. So, like that was the one thing that always really got under my skin is like, no matter how the opportunity comes to you or what shape or form, first you still have to see the shot. You have to be self-aware enough to understand, yo, there's an opportunity here. Then you have to honor the moment and really just decide, okay, I'm going to go for it. Then you got to fucking go for it. That's just the beginning. And then you have an endless route of failures ahead of you, that remind you that you should stop, that are constant fucking like, yeah, quit now. Now it's time to move back home, call mom and dad for money, whatever, right? And like not doing those things in those moments. That's the real difference. That's the shit that really, really like, that's the one where I can see, like people with broken wings down the road. I'm like, yeah, I feel you, dog. I had that, Yeah, I feel you. And bro, Picasso had the same fucking paint as every other painter, didn't he? Like, the tools are there. So don't come at me like anything was handed down to me. And like, it's funny, in the end, I actually got so hyped when people just were making up all these things about me. Like, oh, that fool's like rich or like rich family or parents or this or that. Even in high school, like I used to just be fitted. Like my outfits were like planned a week ahead. And all these kids would just assume that I was like a rich kid, And that's when fashion really started to take a real like sort of subconscious focus in my daily life. I understood it was a tool, and I used that fucking samurai sword, I was like, yo, if I can I can use my clothes as my first line of defense, my first shot back at them, So no matter what the preconceived notions were of who I was.
Because I think that's the thing too. There's a lot of brands where the mystique in this, and I say this in love and compliments to you, you were not the star of your brand. When I first saw your stuff,
I tried not to be.
And so whether that's good or bad is irrelevant. But the fact is you made product and you made your product speak for itself. Versus some people, their personality is the product, which means their product can actually be shitty and they can get away with it.
Yeah. They can be crap. I mean, most people don't know what Boris looks like.
There you go.
I mean, imagine CCP, Rick is the most famous one out of the lot. And it took him 25 years to come out and actually like do a collab here and there. And be more open. I think when it comes to the products, bro, maybe the nature of how the brand started, just was just really suiting for me. It was really like, it would suit me that it came from a place of demand versus like me trying to finesse people into buying stuff I was making.
Well, especially from earlier, people came up to you and they said, you're going to sell this to me.
Yeah, because of the store, and the shop becoming this kind of go-to place to discover new things. Whether whether it was, like a dope t-shirt brand or, someone like a really cool vintage collection, whatever the fuck it was. People would come to the store kind of open-minded, and just willing to, put their dollar down on things that were not super popular, but equally as expensive. At the time, I remember the first $150 t-shirt on the block on Fairfax. I got hate mail for it. People were like, get the fuck out of our block. You don't belong here. Jeez. And I thought I was bringing the value of our work up, and it wasn't always looked at that way. So over time, I decided, okay, look, I wrote the guy back, actually. I wonder when he'll reply, maybe when he hears this. But I said, look, bro, I'll tell you what, let's have a beer. And if you still want me to leave after we, have a beer, I'll move on.
Okay.
Never heard back. Not surprised, but I never heard back. I heard a lot worse things in person, and people just couldn't fathom that I was, discovering and sharing this world and that people were buying it. They would think of everything except the fact that I just was passionate about something and I was driven and I was willing to bring it, on my dime and on my terms to a community that I knew wanted to discover it, So I was just focused on bringing new people to Fairfax so that we can expand our footprint, So I would work from local brands and then eventually brands from all over the world who I thought were doing something cool. So then, over time, I think we ended up at like 45 brands at some point, and eventually even got a Rick Owens account. Dior hit me up to do a pop-up in my space on Fairfax. We've had some real milestones, we've managed to achieve some things. Still, I'd like to say like low key, I don't want to scream like, look at me in that kind of, desperate look at me way. I'd rather you type in the thing on Google and you find out all these things. You're like, dude, no way all this shit happened there. I love that moment, because when I have that moment with other things, I feel like I'm discovering it for the first time. I feel like I'm the only one who knows, and that moment is priceless for me. So I just figured one day somebody will have that moment with our shop, with our platform, with our language, and then eventually with my products. And I mean, even now you can still buy that armband jacket for a couple grand.
Really?
I know in Japan there's places where it's like $5K. If you can find the original one, because the resale culture there is such a different universe. And I'm proud of that. I think that's fucking cool. Like if I was 15, 16, 17 right now, and right now it's kind of an even more savage time to wear an armband. But nonetheless, I just wanted to contribute. Like I said, I wanted to bring added value, not because of my physical personality, but the fact that we were giving texture to the neighborhood, adding. Shit, I tried to add trees to Fairfax, no way that was going to happen.
Wait, really?
I tried. Oh yeah. Yeah. The city told me I had to pay for new piping and then pay for a new garbage route, to pick up all of the shit from the trees that the debris and stuff. Damn. So, here comes me trying to make Fairfax prettier, and then I get shut down, not only by the city, but then the neighbors were like, bro, what are you doing? Fuck those trees. We don't want to pay higher rent, And I was like, damn, I just want the street to look nice, you guys never been to Europe? You never been to never been to Japan? Bro, let's make it an environment that when those people do visit, that they're happily, surprised. Yeah. But no, Fairfax has increasingly continued to go in that way.
But you're still there.
And
no,
I'm not. No. Circumstances during COVID shifted the whole shit, and the shop closed. Obviously, it wasn't my decision, but but dream bigger, right? So they closed my store. To this day, I have never had an address with my name on it that was that long. That's the longest place.
Well, yeah, because how long were you there?
Address. About 12 years.
Yeah, okay.
So for me, it's the longest address I've ever had. So it was very emotional. Damn. And, I've mastered the art of falling up, I believe it's called. And, you see something like that happen, and you never prepared for it. You never, it hit me different than I imagined, because I'm a bit more objective about it all now.
Yeah.
But it was still just surreal. It's like, fuck, that dream's dead.
But earlier going back, you were talking about, you very much had this abundance mentality.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you where we are now, so don't worry.
I think that's the thing where, I've talked about this before where people like would go up to Paul McCartney and they'd be like, man, like, the White Album or, Sgt. Pepper, whatever. It's the greatest thing ever. Like, how do you feel like that it's over, that time's gone or that, and McCartney would always respond and he would be like, it's fine. I can just write another song. Like he was not, it wasn't, I think some people, some artists, when they make their art, they put so much of themselves into their art. They feel like there's nothing left and that's it. And they actually feel like that's like a more noble way to make art is this is like fucking Voldemort when you're like, you're cutting yourself up and you're putting yourself in all these things. And now that piece of you is gone. Totally. And, the abundance mentality and like, people like Paul McCartney's like, it's, I am the artist. I'm just going to make another one. Like you can't, it doesn't matter. That might be special to you, but I can just make another song. I can make another thing. And it kind of makes you invincible.
I've grown into that. Definitely wasn't always the case.
Well,
I've grown into
maturity,
that a little bit more, which is like, there was a moment in time, bro, when I would look in the mirror and I would like be like a number. Like I wouldn't be myself anymore, I'd be like a fucking number. Like it's and I realized during COVID, life got real. And then, it's funny. It's funny, all those quotes and all those cheesy things that you hear, when you're younger, like how much they resonate when times are hard, right? And, like when it rains, it pours, all that cheesy shit. It doesn't pour. It's tornadoes, right? Hurricanes and earthquakes and, and then, the great 100-foot wave comes. So it's savage. And once the sniff of your weakness is out there, people pounce. And living through that has been my COVID. Okay. Also I got COVID like really hardcore.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was really intense. And funny enough, during my COVID, like sickness is when I got out of that, all of the demons, tried to come after me right after COVID. So it's like they saw you at your weakest and that's when they decide it's time.
Oh, shit, okay.
So we can unpack that another time. It was pretty gnarly. But all that being said, when you have no income because the thing just died and the only source of income you've had is also dead, and the reality of like, oh shit, I need a job hits you start to really analyze yourself, or at least I had to, right? I don't have a resume, bro.
Yeah.
I don't have a one sheet or a bio. I never had time for any of that. I'm like, you want my bio? Look around.
Just look me up. Yeah.
Yeah. To put my name on the fucking internet, like. But companies don't hire based off of that. They want a sort of detailed accounting of, wins and losses.
Sure.
They want a detailed accounting.
Calculated risks.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I realized, holy shit, I know a lot. And then I realized, like, you know what? I know a lot more than I ever thought I did. And like, okay, I can be of real service to, whatever I decide to get myself into. So that was a sort of, funny enough, I feel like that's me finally becoming an adult. Like until then, I'd be like playing the role of an adult. Yeah. But now I'm like, holy, like you really, I don't have children yet. I'm sure I'll have another moment when that happens. But man, I was like, fuck. It wasn't easy. Only, they did. It's people were worried about me and they were right to worry. I was really going through it.
Yeah. That's the really thing. Hard. I think a lot of people, especially when you're younger, because I feel like it all happened to you at the same time. You have age, which comes in and it's good and it's bad because you look around and you're like, am I as hot as I thought I was? But what were you coasting on at that time when you were super hot, right? Like what was it? Because what you have now is definitely not what you were cruising on.
No, God knows, it's fucking totally different.
Right?
I'm very grateful, that I get to make stuff and people accept it and in some cases exchange their hard-earned money for my ideas. And I value that higher than almost anything.
It sounds like though, if you're able to hit rock bottom per se, you have far much more appreciation for where you are now. But I think this goes back to almost like the Paul McCartney thing I was saying, like it's already in you. Yeah, you can just do another one.
The thing is, you do it once, you can do it again. And I've done it more than once, over and over and over again. I just never really had a structured thought process to capitalize on it. I was just operating just to operate. There was no real purpose to it You know what I mean? It's just like, yo, like, I just want to do fresh shit, and I want to be around people who do fresh shit. That's it.
Yeah.
And I want the whole world to hear about it, you know?
And you also, and you find out who your friends are too.
Yeah, for sure.
When it's
I don't count out none of those motherfuckers, man. I don't count out nobody, period. I love everybody, but I do not hold out for my expectations of what these people will or not do for me, or, you know, what's the word? Like reciprocation, you know? I don't mind. I don't care about that. If I help you, it's because I believe in you and I want you to do well. It ends there.
It's not transactional.
Absolutely not. I don't care for that shit. You know,
it's good, but
it's
there
a learning
should
experience.
be people that have the same mentality, right?
Experience for me too.
Yeah.
You know, bro, honestly, I know how to do it now, you know, to like capitalize off of their long-term win. And I know all the codes now. I know how it works. You know, I know how to legally position myself to win on, you know, their win, blah, 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 all that bullshit. It's gross. It's fucking desperate. I don't need to steal from anybody. I don't need to, you know, if we see added value in each other and we choose to do it together, great. But bro, the amount of people that are out there who are just waiting to take from you with your hard work is sad. It's really a bummer. You know, the people who are your allies temporarily, the just in case people, you know, the just in case people, like, let me put an amendment here. The just in case people, you know, things don't go my way. Let me, you know, make sure I get my way later, you know? And it's not only me. I've seen tons of friends, you know, who've cashed in their savings, you know, made every phone call and put people in a totally different place than they've ever been. And you know what those people do? They fuck you over, you know?
Yeah.
Like, without even a second of consideration, you know? So I operate a little bit different. I would say I still try to be that 9-year-old kid that first came to this country. I try to be as pure as I can and just be as holistically, energetically clean as possible. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who have stolen from me, you know, in a time where it's just like, you did that now, you know, out of all the time in your life that you had a chance to take from people, you take from me and you take today, you know, you're not going to sleep for a decade, you know, you're going to need PTSD therapy to get out of the hole you put yourself in.
Right.
I'm good. Fuck it. You know, like lesson learned. Keep it moving. But for you, dog, like, that's a rough one. You can't go places now. You know, you put yourself in a situation where you can't, people know not to fuck with you because of your character.
I mean, that goes back to when we were, when we were talking earlier, where it's like, all I'll ever have is my reputation. It's scary, you know, because you recognize how it can get broken in a second.
I'm about to make some money now, you know? I'm about to make some money now, but at least, you know, it will be methodical. It's going to be like the last fucking samurai. I'm in that phase of my life now. Yeah. You know, I'm on my Tom Cruise shit right now. Fully deep diving. I'm in, you know, and
so what is the situation?
The mission changed. Long story short, I have new partners, and they have shown with their actions that they believe in me and that we're aligned. They're very much motivated to, you know, in their words, put 424 where it should be, and they're really giving me the runway, you know, to make that happen, and they trust me. So the moves that are coming now, you know, are things I've always wanted to do, always. And it's not a me against anyone else thing. It's just me for me thing.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
much more pure when you're doing stuff not for vengeance, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm you know, it's all good. I mean, I would do everything exactly the same, except signing a few papers here and there. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know how that goes too.
Yeah. But so the brand, you know, for all intents and purposes, the last couple of years have been very quiet.
Sure.
And so we can talk fashion now. I decided to invest my time and the very little money I had, you know, to my name under my control into making better product. You know, I just said, fuck it. You know, no matter what happens, I have to try to have the goods, you know, have the best products possible. So I just focused all my energy into trying to create a little world, you know? and sort of like a movie, you know, like a film with characters and what's their lifestyle, who do they date, you know, where do they go to dinner, what does uncle look like, dad, grandpa, you know, really Ralph Lauren-esque. You know, I heard how he develops his collections and his characters,
build the world,
and you know, I decided okay, it's time for me to tell my story with that sort of character process, you know, which I think is quite cool. And people are going to be reacquainted with, you know, the 10 years after Guillermo, you know, the one who has been lucky enough to see different cultures, different products, experience a different life, and then sort of clash that together with my life experience so far, which, you know, always lands back at, I don't know, like a California dude who got to see the world and grew up in third world country.
Which is you.
Which is exactly me, you know? So, and that's sort of like, on the go lifestyle of a modern adult who is lucky enough to do whatever the fuck he wants. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to fit into what's it called? The bag you don't check in, you know, like,
yeah,
it's got to fit into one of those.
I mean, I feel like that's the journey of like legendary designers, is that you don't, for some people, you get hot and you make a product, you make an individual product, but you never focus on the brand. This is like the common mistake that accidentally happens to tons of, if you're on the tech side, you're a platform. You're a platform and you're really hot and you got all these people that use your platform, but at the same time, you do nothing to make people like have affinity for that platform, to be a brand. People patronize brands, not products, right?
Yeah.
When we're talking about Apple, I mean, even though, you know, Apple makes a ton of products, people talk about Apple because of the world, because of Steve. People talk about Ralph Lauren. No one talks about the pant, the sweater, the polo shirt, even. It's the world. And that's what makes things become eternal, is because if it's a brand, it lets the person interpret that on their own. And when you're in a world, you can imagine all these other things that happen in it, right? Like, but if it's a product, it makes it more difficult to interpret. You know, if you and I look at a blue shirt, everyone's going to agree that it's a blue shirt. But if we walk into a room where the blue shirt is, that room might look very different depending on different people.
Yeah, of course. And you know, a lot of people don't want to build the room. They just want to make the shirt.
Yeah, and that's the tough
there's
part,
nothing wrong
especially
with
when you're younger,
either, right? Like, I get it, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's where I think our sort of service that we provide to the industry comes into play. We don't make things people need.
Right.
You know? It's a different game we play, you know? Our sort of like things that you need, you know, Uniqlo came at you for that, you know? Like, there's companies,
sure.
Nike came at you for that, you know? The things that you need, like the basics, you know, stuff that Hanes came at you for that, you know, like stuff like that, right? And like, you need
gotta
underwear,
have a shirt.
man. You need fucking PJs, right? Like, so like, you don't need a $700 denim jacket, but you want it, you know?
Yeah.
So then our job is to contextualize why you want it and what is the world that you're a part of when you take part in our, you know, sort of story in our garments, and how they interact with your day-to-day life, you know, for whatever reasons. And for me, that's always been the most dynamic part of the conversation. It's been the most fun, you know? Like, where do people, you know, wear these coats to? Where do people wear these, you know, these beautiful poplin fabrics, these shirts, these ties? You know, that's why I stopped making hoodies a long time ago. I mean, they're on the line sheet, but they're not the focus, you know? People tell me to stop making, you know, even before I started, man, that people were telling me not to do, you know, this or do that, you know? And it's like, okay, cool, you know? Then I went and did the formal wear partnership for Arsenal Football Club, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I went as far away as you could possibly go from making a hoodie.
Yeah.
You know? And really, I was all just doing it on I think on two fronts. I wanted to try to challenge myself to do something that I didn't know how to do. But at the same time, I wanted to build my world too, you know, and I want to create those environments where I have to wear a suit. I want to create those opportunities for me to, you know, dress the part, to go and take part in all of these new found interests that I'd never even imagined I would have as a child. You know, I never knew I wanted to go to Wimbledon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I do pull up to Wimbledon, I want to look like Jude Law at Wimbledon. I don't want to look like the tourist at Wimbledon. I want to look fresh as fuck. You know, I want to look like slightly hungover, but too rich to be turned down. You know, like I want to look like that.
That's very specific. Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm talking about? Because, you know, like, all they tell you there is wear your button up, drink your champagne, and eat your fucking
Get your strawberries and cream.
Right? And I'm like, dude, like, that's cute and everything, but like, I'm trying to pull up like that guy, you know? And the guy that doesn't get turned down at the door because his buttons are like open, you know, his like shirt's blown out, or, you know, his pants are a little ripped. You know, it's like, well, no, that guy needs to be here. Let him in, you know? So that's what my new collection is about. The one that's going to be in stores now, spring, summer 23. It's like, you know, Jude Law, like just dummy hungover and crazy fucking, you know, like late and dusty and like all.
That was the Jude Law with the
freshest one,
the maid era.
Super sick, you know? And I was like, man, like, you know, the idea that someone like me could arrive in an environment like that and still be accepted the same way as, you know, Jude 20 years ago in movies, I think it's hilarious. Like, I think it's hilarious. And all my new, you know, my fabric story is there, you know. I have all of those, you know, Wimbledon fabrics, you know, like we put seersucker in the collection. Like, I've never even seen that thing. You know, it's like, oh, that's what it's called. Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, let's grab some seersucker, you know, let's, you know, let's do that. And really, I'm sort of pushing myself to define, you know, my point of view and really be able to even put it down on paper and show it to someone in words. Like, this is the mission. And that's why I said earlier, you know, like, they're all wannabe collections, because it's not until now that I feel I really have a direction, that I feel I can actually lead a team, that I feel I can, you know, say, you're going to do this work on my behalf and execute these points based on these references. That is new to me.
I mean, that's focus too. Is what it sounds like.
It's sick. It's awesome. Yeah. You know, I needed that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the tough part too, especially, you know, when you're younger, you hit wild success, and then you're kind of like many people, you can kind of forget your roots. You forget what you know, and it's no fault of your own. I mean, it's everyone has that, where you're bombarded by.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, we learn under the telescope, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where people are like, you know, oh, I'm gonna skip school and do that. I'm like, yeah, maybe learn, maybe do both. You know what I mean? Like, because that's true. I would have saved a lot of money if I went to school, you know. But I also know you got to be in the field that you want to be a part of. You know, if you sat and strategized on podcasts and how you could have the best one for a decade without actually ever fucking doing one, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a totally different mentality.
Yeah. So, you know, I do both, you know. I do the labor and I like to do the learning. I mean, that's why I think I managed to kind of go faster. You know, I just fucking dove right in. And the things I didn't know, I tried to study them the best I could, you know, if not on a computer, like on an online class, but like really sit and analyze, you know, all of my movements. And there's some things you just can't figure out how to do, you know, like, fuck it.
Well, yeah, I mean, experience is so important, but also knowing how to find the stuff. I mean, when we go back to the beginning of this conversation, when you were talking about, you didn't say no to wholesale when someone said, I want you to sell me this stuff. You were like, sure. And then you went and figured it out. Like, that's a very different type of personality. Because I think a lot of people, like what you were saying, you'll spend all this time trying to be the best at something, but you end up spending no time trying to actually do it. And what people forget is, like, you know, you mentioned Picasso, you mentioned all these people, like, artists evolve. You know, no one really comes out with their opus day one.
I mean, God bless them if they do. That's crazy, you know. But
I don't know a single artist in history where their first was their best.
Definitely not.
Even then, when someone's like, "Oh, the best Radiohead's OK Computer," and it's like, well, you know, they have Pablo Honey and the Bends, right? Like, that's stuff before then.
Yeah.
You know,
like, I feel you.
Your first may not be theirs.
I think I'm fucking lucky, dude. I have this like inner, you know, I don't know, barometer. I'm like, yes, no. And I'm fortunate that I listened to it, you know, and every time I try not to, every time I outthink myself, the shit fucking fails miserably.
Yeah.
When I go with it, you know, when I trust myself and I go with it, it doesn't always work out, but it works out more than when I don't.
Yeah.
Right? The shit is hard. The game is cold, you know, the shit's hard. And after a couple years, you start asking yourself, does anyone give a fuck anymore? You know, why do I even keep going? Who cares? Like,
well, especially with how fast things move.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing that it's not that I'm scared of that, but I definitely get when it's like you're only as important as what you did yesterday. Yeah.
I will say this though. I was so January 2nd this year was like kind of the first day I was really clear and and allowed to be 424 again in a way.
Sure.
And man, the shit was like instant, you know? It was almost like the universe sent out an email for me, like, yo, G's free again, you know? And it was like the flow just kind of got right back on track. People reaching out, new opportunities, so all these things that I wanted to act on that just kind of simultaneously started to present themselves again. You know, it's like, oh shit, okay, cool. Like people still care. And even actually in some cases, even more than before. And there's all this stigma about being older and not being, you know, super young and famous and rich and all those things. And you know, I don't have any of those things, but
now you have focus.
But I don't feel I'm lacking any of it either.
Sure.
Right? Which is that's a relief. You know, like I don't ever knock anyone for having their thing. I'm never compare myself to anybody else. That's a hard one. I got a lot of homies who are way more successful than me. You know, I can actually look at it and be stoked for them. I don't have that inner hater, you know?
Yeah.
I dislike bad product for sure. I hate bad product, you know? And when I feel like you don't give people their money's worth, I take that shit personal. You know, I can't go through a store now, Merlin. It's impossible for me. I go to a store, the department store, I leave upset, you know? I'm like, bro.
I mean, there are a lot of brands that are
come on, guys,
pulling the wool over people's eyes.
I'm like, damn, you know, like you can't do that to me.
Yeah.
It's like, and then I kind of just sit at the shop and I'm like, do I tell them? I'm like, you know what, fuck that. I don't want to take people's happiness away from them. You know, they want to buy that stuff, then go for it. But, you know, for me, it's like, man, fuck, you know, actually, I wonder what your feel is on this. Now that I understand luxury in the fashion space more, Rick Owens is actually cheap.
Okay, go on.
Considering the amount the highest level of quality that he provides for originality, you know, it's his own separate universe, but he gives you quality that's like up there with Xenia, dude. He's giving you quality that's up there with Loro Piana. Like he's using the same mills. He's, you know, created this world, and it's a high level world. Other brands with the same level of production and the same level of output for their work charge 3 times as much
Interesting.
At a retail level. And you know, obviously my world's a little skewed now. Like 3K is not cheap, but 3K, relatively speaking, compared to, like, you know, the company that I know is charging 7K for the sweater or for the blazer. I'm like, dog, Rick is making this at a higher level with better fabrics, more unique, and he's delivering a price point that, if you know what you're getting, is more than fair.
I'll buy. I agree.
So
with
that kind of fucked me up, because I was like, bro, like, now I'm like, yo, not like Rick Owens is cheap, but I was like, but damn, like, now that I understand, like I told you, I go to shops and I, like, you know, just do the walkthrough blind, you know, just touch things, see what grabs my attention. More often than not, you know, Rick is up there. I mean, it's really quite impressive.
Rick stuff is what I think that I admire most about that brand is, one, they don't try to control their narrative too much externally, right? When some of those brands that you mentioned, which I feel like I know what you're talking about, they spend a lot of money on external messaging.
Yes.
And brand ambassadors. And, you know, the watch industry is a great example of this, because they'll give an actor, you know, $500,000 to wear a watch and be their ambassador, air quote. And they show up at events and they do stuff and they fly that person out. And then, you know, all their marketing and PR is not earned. It's more or less bought. So you'll have a press trip. You'll bring a bunch of writers out. You know, Gucci does this too, right? Gucci brings tons of their top clients out, and it's to entice them to spend more with the brand. So they'll, you know, we're going to bring you to Florence. We're going to bring you to the Gucci Museum. We're going to do all these things, and you're going to do that. And that costs money. So where does that money come from? Well, it comes from their margins. It comes from the markups. It comes, you know, it doesn't, they didn't just invent it.
Yeah,
so you have to find a way to, you know, make that person pay for the dream you're selling.
Yeah.
And
totally.
I think with Rick Owens, I am not sure where, is there a Rick Owens ambassador? Is there massive spreads of Rick Owens in every magazine? Is there you know, and there's not. And I think there's something that's really interesting there too. And also, like, I don't think you can distinguish a Rick Owens collection as like a layman, you know, very much.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily sell where it's like, oh, this is this collection. This is the spring summer 13 that really embodied A, B, C, and D. And then they totally pivoted. No, it's like a lot of the the patterns are always incredible. There's some of the most, I think it's some of the most incredible patterns on earth.
Very cool. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. And I mean patterns for listeners as like how the garment is made, not the actual textile.
The execution of those patterns too is fucking insane. I'm a factory rat now. I mean, I'm at the factory all the time, and I can tell you, wow, the fact that he's on a commercial level delivering that product and
the scale of it, and the QC is pretty through the roof.
It's wow. It's wow. Like holy shit, wow. Like
you wonder why. Because you mentioned Zegna and Loro Piana, right? Like those are two companies that are also mills,
dude.
So
they own their world, and
so they're able to do a lot of that. I mean, Zegna and LP, they both spend. I mean, LP is LVMH, right? But they're able to spend a ton of money on all that. But a lot of people, look, I'm a huge LP stan, but at the same time, I like my old Icer. I'm not. You don't see me lining up for the new Icer. Like it's too small. In my opinion, no shade to them, but I guess I am saying anyway. Like I don't think it's as good as the older stuff. Yeah. There's corners that were cut. There's all sorts of things.
So it's
to
crazy,
go to your point, yeah,
because
Rick Owens, it's hard to tell. It's if they're doing it, they're fooling me. I don't know. I don't know what
the mission is different over there,
Yeah.
I think the mission is different. And even though, they're having a great moment now, I imagine, right? I think they manage their own algorithm internally in a very sober way.
Well, and also the best thing, and I think a lot of young designers and young brands get mixed up with this because in the startup world, your focus is growth, growth at all costs. It's not even about profitability. It's about growth. And, when you look at a clothing brand that's a younger person, they're like, well, how do I the world, someone was like, the world's 8 billion people. All I need is like 30 million. And it's like, whoa. Focus. So it's like, don't be everything.
I feel like
to
I would have
everyone.
said some shit like that 10 years ago, like.
It's like, don't be everything to everyone. Be the best of what you're trying to be and stay on that path. And I think sometimes people get a little bored where it's like, I'm sure that there might be some people who are like, I don't know, maybe I'm editorializing, say like a Rick Owens person. It's like, well, this is similar to some of the stuff we did last year. But it's like, cool. You don't need to grow from that audience. You look at like Keaton, Loro Piana, Isaiah, a lot of the Neapolitan, even though LP isn't a Neapolitan, but maybe like Rubinacci, right?
Okay.
So those are three brands that are also kind of like tailoring houses. And they more or less steal from each other's market share every year. And but they're not always trying to like grow outside of that market share because you don't need that much to survive. And they're at least with Keaton, $10,000 DB.
They're still,
so it's
they're still fine. Like the families still have all the villas. Everything is going. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not doing all these different verticals to try to be everything to everyone. And having that focus,
that's
I think,
LVMH, isn't it? I mean, it even.
Well, LVMH is now. It just goes. But LVMH is everything.
It goes beyond the like. Okay, we make money. It's like now it's just like it's LVMH or nothing. And the proposition is very much like if you don't shop LVMH, it's not even just shop Louis Vuitton or whatever other brands they own. It's like if you don't shop LVMH, you don't know luxury, right?
But to their credit, and I'm not a defender of them.
It's fantastic. People hate because obviously it's easy to hate the Death Star, but like but he built it, like from fucking, it didn't exist before. It's an incredibly impressive, sentiment that they drive. They drive this massive voice. I mean, everyone in the world knows the name or knows.
Well, yeah, I mean, and those brands, one thing that's like a core principle for all the Arnault, for the LVMH brands, because the Arnault is only 56% of LVMH. But like for the way that they operate those brands is they can't leverage other brands within the house. So like Loro Piana can't be like, here's our version of the Rimowa. It's just, no, you got to go do your own thing. That brand needs to stand on its own. And I do think that's pretty interesting because if you look at how larger conglomerates work, you leverage every brand asset.
Incest everywhere.
Yeah.
It's as a consumer, as a sort of like a more educated consumer, it all starts to become like one big fuck show.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I can't be bothered, whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's the tough part because now I do feel like it's much more competitive than ever. But I think the brands that are going to last the longest, in my opinion, are the ones that have the most focus to where it's like Rick Owens. I mean, that is probably the best example because like
for me,
they're not trying to win.
I can't see anything stronger, like the dude is like just
Well, yeah, they don't have a meeting where it's like, how do we get the Ralph Lauren customer? That Ralph Lauren customer is so strong. How do we get those customers over with us? Like that, I would be shocked if that's ever a line item or a discussion in their meetings.
God, no. If it ever comes up, it's just like, how cool is Ralph Lauren? Okay, back to work.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So
for sure, like, I guarantee that's how it goes down. It's like, man, Ralph Lauren, what an awesome story. Okay, guys, let's go back to like milling these like baby hair cashmere sweaters.
Baby hair. Yeah.
I mean, like, it's a different focus. It's a different. I don't know, man. I always looked at stuff like that. I think, well, to be fair, the first time I ever walked past Cafe Charlot and it was just darkness, I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I couldn't put into words. It's like, wow, like I do not have enough black on. I need to go back to the hotel right now. It was like they owned it. And it was just this sort of, Parisian vibe and all of these dark vampires. And I was like, my God, it's the coolest thing I ever saw. It was like, what is this? I went straight to buy scriptpants like immediately. Yeah. And it just, the world never wavered. It never got cheesy. It never got corny. It expanded, but it's done in such a high skill level. It's like if you're playing some whatever game, they're operating at like the master level, where it's just like, dude, it's so good. It's foolproof. It's honest. And of course things are going to, it's going to grow. It can become more popular. It's super dope. Like people find out about it and, or they buy into it. They don't. It doesn't matter. Like it's on its own trajectory and it's very clear.
And I think like that stuff happens when I mean, in a way, not that I'm like anti whatever, but like if you're not so focused on having 100x growth or 50x growth every year, and it's like, you just need to grow 2-3%. I mean, that's one of the things I really admire about a lot of Japanese brands is to where when they, you talk to people like Takahiro Miyashita or, any of the folks that more or less operate exclusively within Japan. They have a few doors outside, but they're like, look, Hiroshi Fujiwara talks about this where he's like, I don't want to take money from other places. I want to use my own money. And I just need a very small amount of growth every year to keep myself going. Versus an American mindset is usually, well, I'm going to take this massive bag and that's fine, but I now need to have a 70% growth every single year. And you end up having to compromise on things. You're not able to focus. And then you can't be eternal.
It's I think you choose your path. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, and I see some of my friends doing it, and I'm like, dog, respect to you because you are living on the fucking edge, Yeah. And you're like, if your next hit isn't equal or bigger than the last hit, how are you gonna make out? How? Because so once you decide you want to join that circuit,
the allure of sure.
You have to be the fastest car in the circuit every fucking race. Yeah. And if you can keep that up, respect, really, truly, that's awesome. I find that a lot of people end up following trends, paying attention to other people, what they're doing that's working. And then you fall into the habit of keeping up with all of the relevant things of the moment. But our shit operates with a 6-month lag. 6 months now.
Yeah.
9 months if you're independent, a year if you just started. So I say that to say this. When you choose that route, you are at the mercy of the market. Rick is not.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have your ups, you have your downs. But I think you can kind of you can stay, on course if you do it a little bit slower. If you don't choose, to even if it's not about finances, but just about staying power. I want someone to be, like saying later, like, damn, G's had this brand for 3 decades, 4 decades. Staying around seems to be the real hard part.
Yeah.
No matter where you have your highs or your lows. And I don't copy anybody. I don't pull up to the fucking factory with military pieces. I don't pull up with, my favorite raft pieces. I copy myself,
Right.
Every season. I just make it better. But for me, the fashion pieces are sentiments. They're moments in time that I try to remember and thinking that they come out as products. And I fill in the blanks where needed, right? And that's how my collections come to be. But it's not, the homie did cargos. I gotta do cargos.
That is very much a text thread that a lot of people send. Where it's like, this person did this. How do we?
Because
no,
now
you're
you
exactly
have
right.
sales teams, you have showrooms,
Yep.
merchandisers, they call them, right?
Yeah.
And you have this whole other group of people who are charged with the task of making you a commercial success. But that only means within their distribution channels. And what brands are you next to within their strategy? So it's very easy to get fucking lost in the sauce, like really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, if you take the fast route, more than likely you're copying somebody. And if you're copying somebody, you're their student, and you have to continue. And even worse, if it works for you, if you copy a trend and it hits, you are stuck copying trends forever. And that's how you spend your day.
Yeah.
And that's how you spend your time, paying attention to and copying something quicker than the other guy.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. So for me, I'm like, yo, fuck all that. Let me focus on, how I want to spend my time, how I want to live my life, and what are the things that I need to fill in all the texture, Like, even if it doesn't go as fast as it does for some other people, I feel good about my, my sort of momentum, even if it's not like only forward momentum, right? Might go left, right, might go a little crazy, but at the end of the day,
sure.
Every year, at least on my end, I see the barometer being higher and higher and higher. Even if it's not outward and it's not public and it's not my face being more and more relevant on the search engine, the product gets better. And I've heard stories about Arnaud or Renzo, right, where they can't even be inside a store because they just go touch everything, and they're still product people at the end of the day. Like, even with all of the noise, you can't walk past a leather bag and be like, you know what? They sold this shit wrong, and I've heard stories that these guys still do that. Can you imagine Arnaud still checking product at the Loewe shop? It's like,
oh yeah, that's gotta be nuts.
But it's, I think it's a different commitment to the work. And I'm very much one of those people. So I'm focused on the thing. Obviously I pay attention. I'm not an idiot. And I like cool stuff that people do, but it doesn't mean that I go and implement it into my collection or my work, because it might not have a place there, and the second you do that, like you said, nobody trusts your brand anymore. It's like, what the fuck is G doing making, I don't know, whatever, like, doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's just
like now I'm making headphones. And you're like, well,
I mean, I did do a couple beer partnerships, but like, I drink beer.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's when people just like do totally new products. Like, sometimes, look, you gotta get the bag to stay alive.
Well, I mean, look, I get it, but there are ways to do it where I guess what I'm saying is, like, when you don't have to and you still do that, it's tough, and you pay the price for it later. You really do, And again, back to what I said. God forbid, you make, like, let's say you never ever wore a pair of, like, I don't know what they call donk sandals, right? Ever, like Havaianas, right? But then all of a sudden, Havaianas are like the most pop-in item for every brand because Essence said so. And you make Havaianas, right? Guess what? Your Havaianas are the most lit. Essence sold out. They need more. Now you're a Havaianas brand.
Yeah.
And you hate them personally, like inside, you're like, God, I hate those fucking sandals. But now that's what people know you for. And the second you don't make Havaianas anymore, stores drop your brand because they only came to you to buy the sandal.
Right.
That's a tough one.
That's yeah. I mean,
so then you're like, whoa, fuck. Okay, well, what's the other thing people are buying now? Okay, Tamagotchis. Let's make Tamagotchi cases. Boom. Next thing you know, you're like, so once you bite into that low hanging fruit, you gotta really be careful.
Yeah.
And that's where I think our conversation in Florence really is stuck with me, even if we talk very little, because the people we talked about, they never did any of that shit. They kind of lived and died by their own sword, but nonetheless, there's still two people here who they never met talking about, how much they love their own work. And I think that that's beautiful. I always really,
that's true.
I imagine if anybody's going to talk about me, I would want a conversation like that. Remember when he made that weird fucking jacket fit like shit, but it was cool? I like that. I think that that's an awesome conversation, I don't want people to think, look back and be like, yo, remember the Barbie collab the fool did? Because every other company did a Barbie collab, Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
So again, just for, and it, like, I'm gonna say, younger people, kids, whatever.
Yeah.
Just look down the line a little bit longer, a little bit further.
Yeah.
Give yourself, that because 10 years goes by a lot faster than you would imagine. And you do have to look back at all the things you were a part of.
It's true.
And,
it's true. Damn.
And in the long term, it's not like, oh, I wish I didn't do it. It's just, did it really add, to your work? Did it really give another layer to your work that was useful, that was, that you could be proud of? And in some cases, a big partnership with a corporation is just what you needed right at that time, but still, like, I look back at my Modelo, billboards with I put my brothers on there. We looked like the Reservoir Dogs. I'll think that shit's cool forever. It's literally me and my brothers and our best friends here in LA. It was like a little, banda of Latin kids on billboards all over LA. Like, doesn't matter, anything. I look back on that and think it's fucking cool, Yeah. And I needed the money to stay afloat, but still, we did it in our own way. And I'm not saying don't turn down anything popular, but it just for the sake of turning it down, that's not it either, but it just makes sure it adds to your overall story in one way or another. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Like, if it's a book, is it even a sentence in the book that's going to add, to the whole world that you're building? And if not, then fuck it off. Just say no. Just don't do it.
That's true. Damn, bars.
Not everything has to be a big hit too. It could be just a weird little thing that you did. But like, just make sure that it has added value. I think that's that if I had to say anything, from this last decade on Fairfax to the next decade of my life, I think those two words really encompass my mission at this moment in time. Is I want to be added value. I want my physical, flesh to represent added value. Whatever room I step into, I want to add, I want to add value to that room, that conversation, the product, the strategy, the, relationships with my girlfriend, relationships with my family. I want to add value. That's what I want to be. I want to stop being a human and I want to actually just be added value. That's what I would like.
Damn.
That would be sick.
Well, you added value to this, my friend. This was great. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking so much time with me and chatting. We'll do this again soon, man. You've been listening to Blamo. We're edited by Amar Lal, our music by Breakmaster Cylinder, and we're produced by Blamo Media. If you like the show, tell a friend. Give us some good vibes, and you can follow us on social media at Blamo Podcast, or send us an email at info@blamopod.com. If you want to join and hang with us, you can join the Blam Fam at patreon.com/Blamo, where we have tons of exclusive shows, exclusive episodes, and our amazing, incredible Slack community. All right, folks, that's it from me. We'll see you soon.